Hopefully that's working. We getting the word out and double checking the stream, make sure it's healthy. There, looks like it's happy. Of course, as soon as I say that, I might start sneezing. So anyways, good morning. It is December 6th already. And that reminds me, there's a screen that I wanted to bring up. I should do that right now. This is the 100th anniversary of, where'd that screen go? Over here. The Halifax explosion. Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's 100 years ago today. And up until the first nuclear detonation, it was the largest man-made explosion. Let's see now. Matter of fact, this will work. Should get me there. I just wanted to bring up a page about it. Let's see if we can find it. The reason I wanted to talk about it a little bit was that the person being recognized today, Vince, I believe Coleman was his name, and he was a telegraph operator on the GNR and Government National Railways. He knew what was on the ships that were burning in Halifax Harbor. There we go. Let's see if we can see some images from it. How about some bigger images? Not what I'm looking for. Anyways, we'll skip that since I'm not getting the shots I want. The Halifax explosion, it was a munitions ship collided with a cargo ship, and when it exploded, I guess we can go with this one, wiped out the city. As I was saying, Vince was one of the people who knew what was in one of the ships, and those people knew started fleeing away from the ships. And being a telegraph operator, he realized that another passenger train was coming in. So he turned around, he ran back to his post, and he started telegraphing a warning out, and said it was fire on ship, munition ship on fire, it's going to explode, stop the train. And then he said, I guess this is my last message, boys. And he was quite correct in that, because the ship blew up. He was killed probably instantly. But his actions stopped that passenger train from getting into the area of danger. But also got the word out all along the telegraph lines that Halifax was in serious trouble. And actually one of the communities that were early responders was the city of Boston. They had a relief train on the tracks very quickly with doctors, nurses, and medical supplies and food. So quite an amazing story, but and a sad day. But that was 100 years ago today. That's a little bit of history for you for today. So what do we got going on right now? I am going to be going over a print I came across, and I was quite happy to get out, and it really showed off what you can do with SLA printing. It started out on Friday. I started poking around the Smithsonian Institute's 3D area. So if you go onto the Smithsonian site, you can choose to go into a 3D area. And the thing about their 3D area is not only do you get a tour of the stuff in 3D, you can actually download STLs for many of the objects there. It's not a huge thing. There's only 7 pages, I think. 6 pages perhaps. But there we go. Hey Rover, life's been complicated lately. I've been getting your emails there. Here we are looking at, hopefully, nope, there we go. This is the site, and one of the files I downloaded was this Gunboat Philadelphia, and it's a 3D model, not a whole lot of information on it in this format. One of the things you can see with the model here is these planks are individual planks. And this gunship, I just did a look at the wiki on it, and part of the American Revolution. I think that was it. Yep, 1776. It was actually sunk at that point and then recovered. With it, though, you download the file, and if I can reach far enough, here's the ship. And so this is cured. Now, this was actually way too small for O scale. Actually, I think it might be pretty close to the right length in HO scale. But the planks are individual planks. It's so hard to see this white material. I got to paint it, but I don't want to paint it with the paints I have. I have some on order. Hopefully I'll get them this afternoon. And then I can start painting them. But as you can see, you know, individual planks off of this, and very nice model. And so it's kind of neat. You can go and find these files on places like the Smithsonian site. So that's the ship. So that got me poking around. When I was showing Brenna that, she introduced me to another site that I might have seen before, and that is the My Mini Factory site and their Scan the World project. And there are hundreds of objects, it looks like, in here. So it's all sculptures and fountains, things like that. People have been scanning once again from around the world. And one that caught my eye was fairly close to the top, and it was this one. It's based on a boy and his mule. And it's interesting that it's the Western Maryland, because when I was looking at East Coast modeling, initially I was going to model the Western Maryland. Interesting side note here, it's titled The Boy and His Mule, and down here they talk about life-size sculpture depicts a man and a horse. So boy and mule is a much more accurate description of it. If I go back to the close-up here, I did a print of it, and just like the other objects, it is so difficult to see the detail with it in white. So you can hopefully see this. I'm going to be changing my camera setup here. I just couldn't get it done for today. You can see along the sides we have the harness. It's not only is it visible, it's separate. You couldn't really see it in white, but once I did a primer coat on it, it stood right out. So as I said, with this SLA printing, I need a different camera setup because everything's so close. As I said, I will be working on that. This one will become a background object because I totally messed up with my supports on here, and that's just part of my learning curve. So there are detailed areas, like the horse's face got some, the hat brim printed quite nicely, but the supports, dealing with the supports, damaged it. But the detail is amazing on here. So it just, you know, tells you what you can do with this sort of stuff. So I was very happy with that print, and it fits. That's going to be on the list, is to add a USB microscope to it. And I have another camera. Today's moving day, so today's the day that Brenna will be heading out, and I'll be becoming a bachelor again. I'll be taking that camera and I'll be putting that directly over top of my workspace, and then a USB camera for the details. So I will be getting that, and yep, I'll be getting it through Amazon. I've seen one on there that'll fit the bill nicely. One problem with the model, though, is it had a base, and with the models I deal with any figures, if you see here, I guess I can go back to this one. Your standard, this is an Atlas figure. I think it's like get 100 or get 50 figures is low price, very inexpensive, not a lot of poses. But the first thing I do is go and cut the base off, and you can put a pin underneath to put it into the scenery so it stands there. As I look at this one, I think this guy didn't come with a base, but this fellow does have one, and I just don't like bases, so we have to get rid of it. And so that's the issue with the model, and now you're getting it as an STL file. So editing STL files can be a royal pain, but my first part one of working with the horse, I did it in DAZ, and part two isn't out yet, but it's on its way. With part one, talking about DAZ, one of the people saw this, brought this program to my attention, Hexagon. So what I did was take the model and I put it through Mesh Mixer and used that to convert it to an OBJ file. And now most of your programs where you can edit meshes will open it up and you can start doing the edit. And so I tried this program for doing the edit, and I found out that actually is very straightforward, and I like the interface. So this is another free 3D package that you can add into the mix. This one is tied into DAZ 3D, but it's a nice straightforward modeling package. Another one it's handy to know about. So I went through and did the edit, but what you end up with is a bit of a problem in that, let's see if I can open the file here. Wait for this to open up, and what happens here's a hoof. That's what we're looking at. There, that's the key. When you erase the base, of course, the hooves open up. So you have to go through and fill these. Now it's straightforward to do in the package. There's another hole that's coming up here. There it is. And this is the insides. This is the drainage hole for the resin. So what I should have done before, and what I'll do next time, is I actually hollowed this out before I put it into the program. See if I can find the link for you. Well, if you go to the DAS, there we go. That link takes you to both the DAS software and the Hexagon software. But getting back to this, what I did first was hollowed it, put the holes in, then put it into this program. And what I should have done is do the edit and then do the hollow, and worked with it that way. But so I ended up filling these in, but you can't really tell from the print. But it did work. I was quite happy with the results. Now, with me messing up my supports, it turned out I ended up, I forget the name of this, I should know the name of it. I ended up losing one of these due to the supports. So also parts of the brim, this hat brim, once again I said, it printed very nicely, except the supports, dealing with that, it messed up the brim of the hat. But it's definitely doable. Now, editing with editing STL files is nowhere near as nice as dealing with the originals, because you get into a CAD package, as I say, if you're dealing with the horse, what have you, you can actually move things, move the plank, what have you, instead of having to edit the mesh. Because when you deal with come on, brain, work. Whatever. When you're dealing with this edit or any mesh edit, it takes time. It's very difficult to move things. Whereas if you saw part one of the horse, it's very easy to move things back, forth, up, down, sideways. If they're rigged models, or if you're dealing with objects, you know, in 3D Fusion 360, you know, you can pick up the object, move it somewhere else, and do that patch. Now, I chose to do this in Hexagon just to find out how Hexagon worked, but I could have done it in a number of programs, ZBrush, or over in Blender. You know, any Fusion 360 does have a mesh editing component to it. It's a matter of finding out which one feels more natural. I struggle with ZBrush still, and it's just a matter of getting into the headspace, whereas this one, doing the edit on here that I wanted to do, was very straightforward and easy to do. Now, the other aspect to it is they have add-ons for this for dealing with clothing, things like that. So you mentioned the harness there. Yes, I think that This is the program where I can build well, hats for my people, harnesses for the horses, that sort of thing, clothing. One of the things back on, where did it go? Here we go. Let's go back to the screen here. Back on our site with the Smithsonian, I'm just trying to scan, go through, find the image. Here it is. And let's, do we actually get to see object? No, not like that. This is Amelia Earhart's suit, flight suit. And where this is important for me is I'm going to be needing a bunch of stuff like this for the HO layout. This gives me an idea of how flight suits should look. And of course I don't need this much detail in HO scale because my HO layout is 1942. So, but it's a military situation. So coveralls, things like that. This gave me a good idea to look at how this is laid out. And I'm going to be making use of information like this. And hexagon will give me the capability of doing that sort of modeling. They have simple tutorials for going through and adding clothing to a figure, so you can take a figure and add a skirt or something to it. You know, where it's important for me is, where's this camera again? Here's my lovely lady. And this would be very appropriate dress for my layout. She's an HO. I know that the hats are going to be straightforward to model, very easy to do. Nice thing about the skirts are there's no legs to deal with. It's just one easy piece, but you gotta get that draped on properly. So it looks like the hexagon / DAS will be the best way to do that. Now, if I can pull up that one site again, my inspiration for the way a lot of the way people will look comes actually from Hello Dolly. Let's go back to the screen, and do we have the street scene on here? It's a great one. Oh, here's Yonkers Station. This is a stage performance of it. Oh, didn't want to do that. I'm trying to see if there's an indoor scene that I can use. It's a fun movie. But you can see just from some of the pictures on here, the hats, suits, the full dresses. The one, yeah, this one comes from the movie. This one here, they're in the hat shop. So my layout, my O-scale layout, is going from the town where these monitors are. This bench work will hopefully get finished in the next 2 weeks, but then the passengers get off standard rail here, and I'll be going down past the cattle area, which is a milk stop, and that's where my figurines will come into play, and then over to the stop for a hotel, because once again, at the time, if it was summertime, if you had money, you got out of the city. So this is such a resort on the East Coast. So people will be in their Sunday best on the layout on the platforms. Of course, the people in the streets and out in the fishing village, clothing won't be quite like this. Let's see what else we have. There's the street scene. This is from near the opening of the movie, so that I'll be adding in there. And in the seaside resort, at the one end of it will be a white church, and it's from the final scenes from the movie. And turns out I have a church down the road that will match it. I have to get the pictures because I just found out it's about to get torn down. But anyways, in the final scene, they have a helicopter shot, aerial shot, with the steam engine going along, short passenger train, and you see the church overlooking the ocean, and that will fit in perfectly with my layout design in the room next to this room. So going to be fun. But you have the hats with the details, the flowers on there, the long dresses, you want them draped on there, a variety of hats. This will be doable with this printer. Let's go back to here. So that's what I'm up to with that. The other thing I'm working on is I'm just double checking to see with another supplier. I'm getting ready for my contest for my 500 subscribers. I'm going over 500. I think it's heading up to 540. So I haven't done a ton of stuff this way, but what I need to do, let's head over to that camera, and with that, hey Glenn, let me just drag this over so I can see what's going on here. And where is that? There we go. Yeah, I desperately have to change the camera setup in here, but we will get there. So let's pick up from last week. This horse hasn't been cleaned up yet. I still have some supports on it, and it was an accidental print. I wasn't watching what I hit on print, and I ended up getting this guy on here again. So I have to clean it up. But as you can see from the other horse here, this is the one I painted without primer, and it just didn't want to stick at all with this. But I took that last week. I hit the primer on it. There's our primed horse, and you can actually start seeing the detail for the mane. The tail showed up nicely, and so this one's ready to go. I started painting this one. I need a better color for the body, but it worked for the base. But the hooves are coming through there. Got our hock showing up nicely. I think I got rid of the last supports. The problem with this one is this is a test horse again. You can tell by the fact no tail, so it'll be hiding in the background so it doesn't show that it doesn't have a tail properly. But and then this guy, this is two problems. One, I do need that USB microscope in order to show off prints like this. But second, I'm glad I'm working in O scale, because in order to get anything done, this stuff, I need to be wearing this gear. Now, fun part, went to the dollar store. This is when I first moved out here, and they had, print a tail and glue it on. I'll probably end up doing like that. Dollar store had some X-Acto knives or some knockoffs, and I went, it's only a couple of bucks. I'll try a set. The blades haven't been tempered properly, or even if. Most of the blades bend a whole lot. They're not, it's super silly. They go dull almost instantly. It was just a few of us in the train club, when they saw them, and they're, you can always use more X-Acto knives for this sort of thing. No. There's a reason why they're in that store. But the problems with the supports, one of them is, hopefully I'm getting this into the shot, right here and here there were supports, and so when I removed them, there's indents in the model from where the supports were. Now that I have these on here, there's when I patched the hole, this is where part of the patch went in. Shouldn't have been there. But I did have to put supports on the harness, and that came off very nicely. But once again, working in just plain white resin, it is so difficult to see any of the detail on here, to see if you got some support left over. I can see support marks from here to here. The hat definitely has issues I'm gonna have to clean up. And then we have some more support joints on this side. Now, the one thing I have to mention with this too is, these marks are on here, but if I have to put on a magnifying set in order to see these, then if I got them on a layout that people will be a couple of feet away, how much of it does it really matter? So it's getting into rivet counting again. This thing, it's going to be like it's back here. It's not a foreground object, and even foreground objects are going to be seen from, at the most, the closest the person's going to get is a foot, and they're normally going to be further back. So where do you draw the line? It's the fact that it has the harness on here. When you go around, you can see it. The harness actually stands out. It's loose that way. But the other marks on there, I can't see them from this distance, and I stare at them. So somebody coming in for the first time, it's not going to be that big an issue. It's like what details are on here. I keep going back. This is the commercial cow from Woodland Scenics, so commercial product. Most of what you see here is not really modeled in. It's just the way it's painted. So the painting job and that will handle most of the basics, and you just put it to the back. So this is something I know personally I always have to fight with, is where do I stop fighting with the details. You know, I think I mentioned before, my garage, HO garage, had, before its encounter with my son's helicopter, had on the wall a calendar for, I think it was May 1942, and there was no way you could actually see it from the well, from anywhere, really. The only person that knew the calendar was there was me. So now, with that, the only reason the garage was there is because I wanted one. So is it that big of a deal? No. So I'm going to have to touch up the primer on this later, but having the primer on it has helped me with the cleanup. Biggest thing is, I don't know how I'm going to fix up this hat, because it's so thin and so small. I might be able to put a piece of paper very carefully cut over top of that and turn it into a second brim. But have some very interesting textures. If I stop dropping this, this is where I need the camera up here. So next week, that camera will be in place. I have up there, I have a touch of a support by the ears. I wasn't really hanging on there. There's quite the texture on here from the primer, and to prime it I just used a spray can of automotive primer. I have some model primer that hopefully I'll pick up this afternoon, but hopefully it's arrived. Yes, it's a big day here. Today's the day that Brenna starts her move out. So yes, I'm not going to be on for all that much longer, as I have to run down to the border to see if there's anything that she needs to take with her. Anything that's coming in the mail. I didn't like that. And of course, I've also primed the dog hairs. That's good. I gotta touch up the primer on this guy. Just from the marks I did. Actually, maybe I won't even do that. Maybe I'll just paint it and let the marks just be some patches on the fur. What I have to do next is figure out the color for a mule. That's going to come across nicely, I think. Let me grab you, bring you back over here so I can actually read what's been going on. There we go. Bondo toothpaste. Clay Country, Iowa Fair. There we go. I'll see what you're talking about here. There we go. It looks like a nice exhibit. Great drains. How am I doing here? I got about 5 minutes left before I head for the border. So back with the horses. Hopefully I'm going to be wrapping up that. It's only been 6 months I've been fighting with horses, but it gotten there. I've added the detail for the horse I did last week in ZBrush. I think afterwards I get through that, I'm going to do part 2 again, but through Hexagon, and see how it turns out in there. So it's just learning about new software, and then pushing through, see what you can do with it. There's so many different packages out there. Hexagon has one thing that I haven't been able to figure out yet, is with modeling. I'm modeling this chair right now, and I need it in the background, and so I can trace over the top of it. And I'm finding the I'm working on it in Fusion 360, but in some ways I think I'd rather be able to do it in Hexagon. Just that some of these shapes are easier to do in a program like that. Fusion 360 is wonderful for mechanical things. I am actually building this in Fusion 360, if I hadn't said that already. But being able to trace an image, you can do that in Fusion 360. But its spline tools are not as strong as some other packages there. So if I could model with a fully empowered spline setup, then this would be much easier, especially all the details up along the sides here for this chair. You know, my friend's going to paint it. I don't have to worry about doing the paint job on it, but this will be printed out as doll furniture. And actually, what I've masked these out. Actually, I just fired these into PowerPoint so I could see some of the images I have for the furniture to work on. You know, this one's much more straightforward. Chest of drawers. This is another interesting chair. This is where a spline model would be handy. So all this is becoming dollhouse furniture. Another one that'll be a challenge. It's one of these. I actually spent a few years assembling these. So that was always fun. They became the rage again because folks were love them for baking. You know, best loaf of bread comes from a wood-fired oven. Is the thoughts on that. So you wouldn't believe the amount of grease that these things come packed in. Major pain to clean up, but once you get through all that, they sure cook nice. But with that, I'm going to have to run for today, and Brenna will be doing her final packing here, and then I'm a bachelor again. It'll be me, my dog, and my cat. No Friday night hangout this week. We move up. It'll be in 2 weeks' time on the How I Do It site and our channel, and the topic will be what inspires us. So that's what we'll be working on. And Rover, I will be getting back to you. Just really appreciate the work you've been doing playing with this guy. Getting a logo on there. I just it's been a rather busy week, so once we're done with the move, it will be much easier. Oh yes, yesterday, as of yesterday evening, not only is the drill press gone from my kitchen, now all the wood I had stored in the living room is out in the workshop. So I actually have this thing called floor space. It's a foreign concept to me. I do have floor space in the living room, which is rather shocking. But so much fun. Anyways, have a good night, or good day, I guess. Be safe out there, and I'll get some more out near the end of the week. Talk to you later.